When I first had the opportunity to run this organisation, Action for Happiness, I went online to look for other similar non-profits working in this area, and I was shocked by what came up on my screen. It said the words, "Your search for happiness has produced no results." So hopefully we can do slightly better this evening. We live in a society with its priorities all wrong. Our national obsession is trying to grow the economy as if that is the main measure of progress and success. And yet we're getting means and ends mixed up. The economy matters, of course, but it matters only insofar as it delivers good lives for people. The end that matters is those good lives. This is what happiness and well-being is all about. As Aristotle said, it's the whole aim and end of human existence. None of us want to experience unhappiness. Alison talked about unhappiness. Nothing about the support of this motion is suggesting that those are not natural emotions to feel. But actually all of us want to experience a life that is fulfilling and happy. None of us want long-term periods of isolation, depression, anxiety, and so on. But all of that is pie in the sky, really, if it's not possible to A, measure and understand happiness, and B, to actually practically do something about it. So just quickly on that first point, I'd just like to come back on something Eamon said. He said that it wasn't possible to measure happiness. That's not true. Actually, scientific studies have shown conclusively that it correlates incredibly well with patterns of brain activity, with independent reports from other people about your behaviour, the things you subsequently do in your life. They all map to your self-reported sense of well-being. Eamon also said that no country can see any measurable change in happiness. It just stays static. That's also not true. We have, in recent years, seen huge increases in well-being in some sub-Saharan African countries, traditionally the least happy, where, for example, there have been moves away from genocide and other awful things that are detrimental to well-being. We've also seen countries like, the two biggest falls in well-being in the last 5 years have been Greece and Egypt. We all know what's happening there. It absolutely correlates with people's lived experience. When awful things happen, we become less happy. When good things happen in society, we become more happy. It absolutely correlates. Bhutan is interesting. No one claims Bhutan is the happiest country, actually, but it is a country trying to measure this idea. In fact, the happiest country is Denmark. If you've ever been there, it is a very much a country that you would enjoy living in, I believe. But the UK is far behind that. So one of the things that's changed and makes the whole case for this much stronger is that we now have an empirical evidence base. We have a science of well-being. So we're not reliant on hearsay, on speculation, on folk wisdom. We understand that what in general drives human well-being. Now, of course, we're all unique. There's no 10 commandments for happiness, but we do have some very good understanding of the causes of well-being. So let me tell you, the biggest and most important cause of our well-being and happiness from an external perspective is our human relationships. It's not what we earn, it's not where we live, it's not the weather, it's not many other things, it's our connection with other people. It's our loved ones, it's our nearest and dearest, it's our relationships at work, it's our relationships in our communities. That matters most. And from an internal perspective, Alison talked about the importance of our inner lives for happiness. Our mental health is absolutely fundamental to everything about our existence. It's the big hidden tragedy of modern life that 1 in 4 of us is probably struggling with stress, anxiety, depression, other forms of challenges to our psychological well-being. And there's so much more we can do about that. Now, one of the most startling pieces of research I've seen in recent years comes from the British cohort study. It's a very long-term piece of analysis looked at recently by the LSE, following children from age 4 right the way through till adult life, so mid-30s to 40s, and looking at what most predicts adult well-being. And there are two answers that stand out to that question, one about their adult life and one, interestingly, about their childhood experiences. So what most drives adult well-being isn't your salary and your income, it isn't whether or not you're married actually, it isn't your socio-economic status, it isn't the features of your family you grew up in, it isn't your academic attainment, interestingly. The two things that stand out, one is whether or not you have employment in your adult life. We know that work matters not just for our ability to provide for ourselves, but our sense of purpose and identity. But even more important is our emotional health as a child. The early years experiences we have fundamentally shape our destiny. And in fact, the most important driver of lifelong well-being is being able to grow up somewhere where you feel loved and valued and connected and able to cope with the stresses and strains of life. But what do we have? We have a society right now, as I said, with its priorities all wrong, that values people and things predominantly through what they can contribute to the economy, whilst at the same time we see this gap between those that have and have not ever growing. We have a society where we're told that we have to look right, what we consume, what we have, how we look, and and how we're perceived in all matters, which of course is incredibly toxic, especially again for young people. We have a media which is full of either obsession with celebrity or indeed a kind of a toxic agenda of fear and destruction, not a balanced view of how the world actually is. And we have a culture that says success is about doing better than others, it's succeeding at the expense of others rather than in partnership with others. These are all things that contribute to this increasing levels of stress, anxiety, and the fact that use of antidepressants has gone up 500% in the UK in the last 20 years. So that's where we're at right now. What can we do about it? Well, I think we can do things at different levels. I think Eamon is absolutely right that government isn't the only answer to this question. Government can't make us happy, but policymakers do things all the time that affect our well-being. There's absolutely no question about that. They determine our healthcare system, our education system, many aspects of what affects employment and other things we value. Those are crucial to our well-being and they're affected by policy. It's ludicrous to suggest that policymakers can't control our well-being. But also the way we are as individuals, the society and the cultural values we have around us are crucial as well. So let me give you some examples of 3 things I think we could change that would create a happier, healthier and basically more flourishing Britain. So first of all, I'd like to see a change to what I call the toxic narrative that we have at the moment. So, to give an example, we're bombarded with bad ideas about what really makes for a happy life, generally by people who want to sell us things we perhaps don't really need. A lovely example of a way you can counter that was on Radio 1 last week. Radio 1 had a week devoted to happiness, and what came out of that week was all kinds of inspiring messages reminding us that actually it's our friendships, it's our passions, our hobbies, our kind of sense of purpose in life, the things that we love actually that matter more than the things we own and consume, but done in a very engaging and entertaining way. That's a lovely example of just changing the narrative away from it's all about celebrity and consumption. But also on a very more tangible and sort of policy-driven level, I think it's ludicrous that we advertise to children. I would clearly, if I was looking at well-being when thinking about policy on who's allowed to market to who, I think there's absolutely no case for marketing commercial products to children and filling them with a toxic materialistic narrative before they're able to even develop their own values and sense of identity. That is a great example of commercial interest trumping people's well-being interests. That would be something that would change. The second theme would be to equip people with the skills to succeed in life rather than just be servants of the economy. So we have, for example, an education system, you all know better than me, many of you, that in our schools has become almost an exam factory. We're churning out people, again, based only on their academic attainment and their ability to get great jobs. We're not thinking about education as a way of instilling the values and skills to flourish in life, to communicate and be in touch with how we feel, to deal with adversity, to kind of have the values that lead us to contribute and understand ourselves and our place in the world. But there's so much broader conception of education that would help us develop those skills. And actually coming back to that finding about emotional health for young people, we should have policy dedicated to helping, especially young families and disadvantaged families, helping make sure every child has that loving, connected, nurturing start to life. So much of what's toxic and wrong in our society is because that is missed. And finally, sort of building on those two, but I actually think there's a case for putting well-being at the heart of every policy decision. Some of our policy decisions will be exactly as they are now because they're already attuned to that, but many wouldn't be. So for example, in communities, so often we are knocking down, for example, community facilities, community centres, in order to build, for example, shopping centres. That looks great if you're looking through the lens of economic growth. It looks terrible if you're looking through the lens of well-being. So plenty of examples like that. I just wanted to end with a personal example. I bought the dream from politicians and from marketers that the good life was academic success, a great job, earning a good salary, buying all the things. That's what I did. I got the degree, the job, the promotion, the money, the things. And what did I find? I found I was lost, depressed, stressed, losing touch with people I loved, doing a job that I was good at but ultimately left me feeling empty. I had a huge crisis in my life. I had major health problems. I followed the story we're told and I ended up miserable. I changed my life. I took a huge pay cut. I did something I believed in, and I found that when we focus on what we can contribute rather than what we consume, great things happen. I'm happier than I've ever been, and I feel like I can contribute more, and I feel that each of us can contribute more, whether we're a policymaker, a business leader, a teacher, a community member, or just each of us as our individuals. We can and we should be promoting happiness and well-being as a priority for everybody. Thank you very much.